Good afternoon. It's Wednesday, the 31st of December. I'm Erin Viner, and this is IBA News broadcasting from Jerusalem. There was relief in the capital today as the Palestinian Authority failed to win a majority vote for its statehood bid at the United Nations Security Council. IBA's Margot Dukevich reports.
The United Nations Security Council has rejected a Palestinian statehood resolution calling on Israel to withdraw from Palestinian territories by the end of 2017. The resolution submitted by Jordan on behalf of the Palestinian Authority drew the support of 8 countries: Argentina, Chad, Chile, China, France, Jordan, Luxembourg and Russia. The United States and Australia opposed the resolution, and Britain, Nigeria, South Korea, Rwanda and Lithuania abstained. That left the motion 1 vote short of the majority required for passage. Israel lobbied intensively to convince Nigeria and Rwanda to abstain and was furious the European nations such as France and Luxembourg voted in favor.
It is thus most regrettable that the Security Council remains paralyzed and unable to act to uphold its own responsibilities in this regard, with all of the implication this has for peace and security in the Middle East and beyond. The repeated request for us to wait and wait and wait while our people are suffering, while our people are besieged, while our land is being colonized, and while the two-state solution is being destroyed and the prospect for peace are evaporating, must understand that such requests are not viable under these circumstances and unsustainable.
We voted against this resolution not because we are comfortable with the status quo. We voted against it because we know what everyone here knows as well. Peace will come from hard choices and compromises that must be made at the negotiating table. Today's staged confrontation in the UN Security Council will not bring the parties closer to achieving a two-state solution. We voted against this resolution not because we are indifferent to the daily hardships or the security threats endured by Palestinians and Israelis, but because we know that those hardships will not cease and those threats will not subside until the parties reach a comprehensive settlement achieved through negotiations.
We consider President Abbas a man of peace and understand the pressure that the Palestinian leadership has been under to act and their frustration at the lack of progress. But we are disappointed that the normal and necessary negotiation did not take place on this occasion.
The draft resolution set a 1-year deadline for negotiations with Israel, established East Jerusalem as the capital of the future Palestinian state, and called for a full-phased Israeli withdrawal from pre-1967 lines by the end of 2017.
The Palestinians have found every possible opportunity to avoid direct negotiations with Israel. They have engaged in a never-ending string of political games, and now they are parading into this council with a preposterous unilateral proposal. I have news for the Palestinians. You cannot agitate and provoke your way to a state. I urge the council to stop indulging the Palestinians and put an end to their march of folly.
The Palestinians' defeat could encourage them to seek recognition in other ways, such as joining the International Criminal Court and other UN bodies. The Palestinian leadership has threatened to ratify the treaty that created the International Criminal Court, which would pave the way for prosecuting Israel for crimes against humanity. The United States has repeatedly warned the Palestinian Authority that such a move would lead to congressional sanctions. Margot Dukevich, IBA News.
Here in Jerusalem, the Foreign Ministry described the Security Council rejection of the statehood proposal as a victory of common sense.
The rejection by the Security Council of the Palestinian Initiative is a victory for common sense. the Palestinian initiative submitted to the Security Council was absolutely not useful in order to promote the peace process or the return to negotiations. It was termed in a very extremist way, and in a way which could certainly not be accepted neither by Israel nor by the international community. We hope that the Palestinians understand that the only way to move forward with the peace process is by negotiating with Israel and not by continuing this unilateral strategy. The Palestinian strategy will bring them nowhere, and it is extremely harmful to the capacity to reach peace between Israel and the Palestinians.
Turning now to politics and the first major party primary ahead of the Knesset elections, with nearly 100,000 Likud members eligible to vote for party leader and the factions list. Elsewhere, Shas leader Aryeh Deri resigned from the Knesset, and Israel Beitenu chairman Avigdor Lieberman is blasting the police investigation targeting his party's activists. IBA's political reporter Eli Wogelenter is keeping up with the developments.
600 polling stations at 115 sites across the country were opened starting at 9 o'clock this morning to enable the party's 96,000 members to cast ballots. Likud is also voting on a proposal to enable the party chairman to reserve 2 slots on the list for candidates he would place in designated spots. The extra vote is due to an internal Likud court decision yesterday that canceled a Likud Central Committee decision to grant the party leader that right. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu cast his ballot at the Jerusalem Convention Center this morning. Despite declining popularity within his party, Netanyahu is widely expected to handily trounce the only other contender, MK Danny Danon. Much speculation centers on who will head the list after him. The top slots are expected to go to Likud ministers Gilad Erdan, Yisrael Katz, and Silvan Shalom, and to Knesset Speaker Yuli Edelstein. Another significant contest will be among female candidates. Netanyahu has been able to preserve only one place for a woman among the first 20 candidates, slot number 15, in contrast to slots 10 and 20 reserved for women in the last election. Likud voting was temporarily halted at the Tel Aviv Convention Center over the issue of overcrowding this morning. Police officers escorted dozens of voters outside after several burst through the voting compound, interrupting the voting and causing disorder. MK Tzachi Hanegbi told me outside the convention center that he was feeling cheerful watching the Likud party members vote.
We are used to have this democracy festivity. We love to see so many people joining the political process, determining the leadership of the party and making sure that the Prime Minister will have by his side the best qualitative group that can help him lead the country. So it's a nice day. The sun is here also, so we got lucky. Waiting for the results in the middle of the night.
So the Likud balloting ends at 10 o'clock tonight, and the results will be available by tomorrow morning. Turning to Shas, and the drama continues as we now have a party that appears to be completely unraveling over the Rabbi Ovadia Yosef tape scandal. Shas leader Aryeh Deri added new drama last night to the party soap opera when he delivered his resignation letter to Knesset Speaker Yuli Edelstein, a move that was followed by the resignation of Shas's other MKs. Shas sources say that Deri is likely to come under significant pressure to withdraw his resignation before the 7:30 deadline tomorrow night. Prior to resigning from the Knesset, Deri held a private meeting with several Shas MKs who tried to change his mind, but to no avail. The election campaign in the other parties is in full swing across the country. Last night, Foreign Minister Avigdor Lieberman stumped in Ariel, where he finally spoke out on the investigation of party members. Lieberman pointed out that most of the people involved in the alleged corruption are not from his party and asked that the media stop calling it a Yisrael Beitenu scandal. No Yisrael Beitenu member has ever been convicted of embezzlement, bribery, or breach of trust, he said, unlike many people, politicians, including ministers and the most senior MKs from other parties who have been convicted. He also attacked his coalition partners in the Likud party, saying it was a party that talks but does not act. It wasn't Yisrael Beitenu who gave away Hebron, Lieberman said, referring to Netanyahu. Other people did. Lieberman also pushed back in his hour-long speech at the claims that he is becoming left-wing, stressing that he wanted a wide coalition in the coming government and that he would not discount any potential partners, including Netanyahu or Labor leader Isaac Herzog. If I form a government, I promise to invite them both to be a part of it, he said. I have said and say once more, I do not rule them out, or Lapid, or Bennett, or Gafni, or Deri. We must not rule out on a personal level. We did not come here to start rejecting other Jews. Aaron?
Thanks for that report. And in other news, Channel 10 television will not shut down at midnight tonight, as earlier appeared to be likely. Attorney General Yuda Weinstein intervened to postpone the closure by 6 months and allow enough time for potential sponsors to bail out the financially strapped station. Weinstein also advised the government to advance a bill to temporarily extend the channel's operating license past its expiration at the end of 2014 to facilitate the finding of a more permanent solution. The move follows intense negotiations between officials at the Second Television Authority and the Prime Minister's office and the Ministries of Finance, Justice and Communications. Returning now to the elections and here to discuss the latest developments is political pundit Mitchell Barak. Hi, Mitchell. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
Okay, let's start with the Likud party primaries. And how do you expect that Netanyahu will do against his arch nemesis, Danny Danon?
Well, I think that the contest is not between Netanyahu and Danon. The contest, as usual, is between Netanyahu and himself. And he is his worst enemy as usual, and he is the one who creates a lot of problems. I would call the Likud in this election a benevolent democratic dictatorship. Likud members up until yesterday didn't know who was running for what. Many of them received the ballot for the members of Knesset without understanding the rules and the different districts and the Olim slot and the other slots and so forth. It was not listed anywhere who's running for the chairman of the party, and for the other issues, whether he can actually put someone into a slot. So I think the real problem with Netanyahu in this election is not the leadership campaign, it's the fact that there's no new blood in the Likud running.
Well, in fact, what kind of a list are we looking at, assuming that Netanyahu does survive? This time he's running without Yisrael Beitenu, Lieberman. He's running without Moshe Kahlon, Gidon Sar, or Limor Livnat. What are we looking at? We
are looking at Netanyahu as being the far left of the Likud, meaning he and maybe Tzachi Hanegbi can be considered centrist. And if Avi Dichter, who formerly served as a member of Knesset and a minister, if he can get in, the list will look a little bit better for the more center candidates and more center party. And center voters, but he's got a problem in that this list is moving way to the right, and it's also not very fresh. It's also the same people, there's no new blood, and at the same time we see that Naftali Bennett and the Bayit HaYehudi party has new people coming in and running every day. Some running, some guaranteed slots. The Likud doesn't really have any new people, and it's a problem because the party is beginning to look stale.
All right, let's quickly talk about the Shas party, all of the developments in the aftermath of the leaking of this Rabbi Ovadia Yosef scandal, as well as the resignation of Aryeh Deri, the party leader. What's to become of Shas and who's going to lead it?
Well, I think we saw the downfall of Shas as soon as the great Rabbi Ovadia Yosef passed away, and there was no clear person who would lead the party after him. And this is all, the party will break apart at the seams. That's the problem with Shas. I mean, I think we've been treated to a mini drama there, a drama, and they to the point of they went to the grave of Rav Ovadia just to prove that they speak in the voice of Rav Ovadia. Yeah. We thought that there was going to be some magic and they were going to actually, open up the grave, but they went to his house. It just doesn't look good. It doesn't look like the party is in disarray, and the voters look like they're going to scatter, either between Shas, Eli Yishai, or maybe some of them have had enough of this.
Do you think Deri's going to come back? Do you think they're going to persuade him?
It's hard to say. In the end of the day, Deri and most of the Shas leadership, they listen to what the rabbis say and what those rabbis request. If they demand that he comes back, he will come back. I think the damage has already been done, because you have to understand a lot of voters in the Shas party are not necessarily ultra-Orthodox Sephardim, but people who are traditional, who want a religious party and so forth, and who valued the figure of Rav Yosef. When he's not there anymore, we just have the infighting, and people are just not going to vote for the infighting.
Okay, we're almost out of time, but before you go, I really want to hear your thoughts about what's going on with Avigdor Lieberman. Of course, he's blasting the police investigation. Do you think he's operating in full panic mode? What's going on?
No, he is trying to get people's attention away from what's really going on, meaning he has a core of followers that see every election the police are against Avigdor Lieberman, and you go into attack and say, this is not Yisrael Beitenu, this is again trying to go against the Russians, trying to convict Avigdor Lieberman. The problem is with this whole thing is that in past elections there were investigations, there were allegations, potential indictments. There's 30 people sitting in prison right now, all of whom are somehow connected to Yisrael Beitenu, meaning the police have enough evidence to lock people up in prison, 30 people, not a few, 30 people in prison. Whether it will hit Avigdor Lieberman himself is unclear, but I think the damage there has also been done because you can't say that it's unjustified, and it's not even an investigation. It's already getting to the point of indictments will be served.
Well, we'll keep on following that story, and you'll be back to discuss it with us. Mitchell, always good to see you. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Happy
Thank
New
you
Year.
for having me.
Well, there's some great news for the nation's drivers to start the year off right. Beginning at midnight last night, there has been a sharp decrease in gas prices. A liter of unleaded 95 octane at the self-service pump went down 63 agarot and now costs 6 shekels and 27 agarot. The latest cut not only reflects a 9.13% cheaper price than consumers were paying a year ago, but even better, this is the lowest price in 5 years. Well, as we all know, the year 2014 is coming to an end in just hours' time. Reporter Alexander Jen took a look back at the year that seems to have brought more misery for many than hope. Right, Alex?
That's right, Erin. Another eventful year has passed, with stories ranging from Operation Protective Edge to the Russian invasion of Ukraine to Malaysia Airlines Flight 370. Here are the top stories of 2014. We began on January 11th with the death of Ariel Sharon, former Israeli Prime Minister, Defense Minister, and Yom Kippur war hero. Sharon had been in a coma for 8 years after suffering a massive stroke in 2006. In February, protesting in parts of Ukraine leads to the ouster of Ukrainian President Viktor Yanukovych. After he flees, an interim president and government are appointed to replace him. But Russia refuses to recognize the new system. Soon after, Russian troops invade Ukraine and the Ukrainian Revolution begins. Then, Russia illegally annexes Crimea. In March, Malaysia Airlines Flight 370 disappears. The Boeing 777 departs from Kuala Lumpur at 12:21 a.m. An hour later, the plane drops from the radar. No debris has been found, no trace of the plane detected. The flight was carrying 239 people. The search continues. In April, the radical Islamic group Boko Haram abducts 267 schoolgirls. Many escape, but 200 are captured. Boko Haram's leader demands a swap of prisoners for the girls. The girls are never free. Both the outrage and a campaign to bring back our girls continues.
Bring back our girls.
Also in April, Egypt welcomes a new president, former military chief Abdel Fattah al-Sisi. His election is a landslide, taking over 96% of the vote. A military coup removes his predecessor, Mohamed Morsi. Now on to the sporting event of the year, the World Cup. Some say it was one of the best yet, with great matches, a fight to the finish, and literally a bite to the finish, when Uruguay's Luis Suarez bites another player. But it all comes down to penalty kicks. Germany takes the cup with a final winning goal from Mario Götze against worthy opponent Argentina. In June, the bodies of 3 Israeli teenagers suspected of being abducted by Hamas operatives are found June 30th. An audio recording of the shooting shocks the world. On July 2nd, the body of a Palestinian teenager is found in the Jerusalem forest. Riots begin in East Jerusalem, and the first rockets from Gaza are fired. Israel hits back with airstrikes. July 8th, Operation Protective Edge officially begins, and the operation becomes a war. July 17th, the IDF ground offensive begins. The airstrikes and ground fight continues, with Hamas militants using cross-border tunnels to attack Israeli troops. The death toll continues to rise. August 26th, Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas confirms the Palestinians and Hamas have accepted the Egyptian brokered ceasefire agreement. Long-term peace, however, remains elusive. On July 17th, Malaysian Airlines Flight 17 is shot down over Ukraine. The Boeing 777 crashes near the Russian border in a territory controlled by pro-Russia separatists. All 298 people aboard were killed. In August, ISIS roars its ugly head. Disturbing video shows the beheadings of 5 different journalists: James Foley, Stephen Sotliff, David Haynes, Alan Henning, and Peter Kassig. They were kidnapped in Syria and murdered by ISIS militants. The Sunni terrorists have been ruthless in their takeover of swaths of Iraq and Syria. In August, U.S. President Barack Obama authorizes U.S.-led airstrikes in Iraq and Syria. The fight against ISIS continues. Also in August, the World Health Organization declares Ebola an international health crisis. The disease spreads through parts of Africa. Nurses and international health workers contract the deadly virus. Ebola has killed tens of thousands of people. On August 11th, we lost comedic great Robin Williams. Williams committed suicide in his home in Paradise Cay, California, where he was found by his assistant. Williams is best known for his stand-up comedy and his top films, Good Morning Vietnam and Good Will Hunting, which won him an Academy Award.
You will? I don't know a lot.
In September, pro-democracy students and others staged massive protests at the Hong Kong government headquarters. This tension comes after the decision not to freely elect a new Chinese leader in 2017. In November, 2 Palestinian men storm a synagogue in West Jerusalem with a meat cleaver and a gun in their hands. They kill 4 worshippers before the police kill them in a fatal shootout. On November 25th in the U.S., the decision not to indict police officer Darren Wilson for the shooting of Michael Brown is announced. Violent protests break out across the United States, with people demanding justice for Michael Brown. In December, Sony Entertainment is hacked. The scandal exposes celebrity gossip, salary discrepancies, and other confidential information. It is still unknown who carried out the hack, but the FBI believes that North Korea is the culprit. And finally, the passing of rocker and blues legend Joe Cocker. The British rocker died of lung cancer on December 22nd. Cocker is regarded as one of the greatest rock and roll singers of all time. His legendary performance of the Beatles' song, With a Little Help from My Friends, at Woodstock solidifies his place in rock and roll history.
What would you do if I said, got a tune? Will you stand up and walk out on me? Lend me your ears and I'll sing you a song. I will try not to sing out of key.
That's a very poignant note.
All right, Erin, I want to wish you a Happy New Year's and
Thank
a Happy
you very
New Year
much.
to all our viewers.
Also to you and to all of our viewers. All right, thank you, Alex, for that. The national financial scene also ended the year on a high note, with the shekel gaining strength against all major foreign currencies, and share prices on the Tel Aviv Stock Exchange also up across the board. Here's a look at the mid-afternoon numbers. The IBA weather team is advising us that a cold wave is coming our way starting tomorrow, with the chance of isolated rain showers and the risk of frost in low-lying areas at night. Here's the forecast at home and abroad for the next 24 hours. Thank you for being with us this afternoon. I'll be back at this desk tomorrow to bring you the latest breaking news. Several parts of the world are already celebrating 2015, and we now leave you with images of the fireworks display lighting up the skies over the Sydney Harbour in Australia, where at least 1.5 million spectators have gathered to welcome in the new year. I'm Erin Viner, wishing you a great evening, a very happy new year, and shalom from Jerusalem.